This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I am the host on this podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. Listen, you know me. We're on this journey and we're going to continue it, where we are exploring, learning about our country, how it's supposed to work. We're praying for the 265,900,000 working Americans that will live in paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet. 79% of us said the country was going in the wrong direction last year. We're going in a totally different direction. We had our election. We spoke loud and clear, and it's a lot of dynamics that have been going on. We have a leadership. We have a GOP trifecta. We have a lot of resistance. We have a lot of harmony. And tonight, we are going to look at some things as it relates to our country as we move forward, that we're going to analyze two different scopes, two different angles about the same thing regarding matters of celebration. We're in it's July already, and the 4th of July is a time of celebration. So tonight, we're going to challenge each other to hear each other out. One thing that I'm learning is that sometimes people just want to be heard, because we have a lot of different angles and views in our nation, and sometimes I just know that someone wants to be heard. I never will forget, and I've mentioned this on this podcast before. This is From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspectives, Spiritual Truths. Those clinical perspectives are considerations of strategies, skills, and tools that we can think about, that we can consider as a nation, that will help us to think in structured ways, particularly as it relates to our posterity, because we have posterity in our nation. They are all over the place. We see it all over social media. We see it on the news. We see it everywhere. It's going on in families. But God has a wonderful plan for our nation, and I know it. I've been in the midst of it, and I know what I'm talking about. I don't know everything, but that I know, and I know what He's called me to. So what I've learned is that people sometimes just want to be heard. I've talked about how I was doing. Everybody knows I'm a licensed clinician, but on here I'm an American. I've done a lot of different things clinically, run programs, set up programs, substance abuse treatment programs, mental health treatment programs, where 87% of the people were clean and sober and gainfully employed 6 months later when they did what I said do for 30 days. God told me what to do. He said, this is how you set it up. So there's some things that I have figured out. I don't know everything, but what I know, and I count it an honor and a privilege to be able to help people that are helpless, addicted, degraded, shamed, traumatized, and they learn that they can do something different. They learn they can do something different, guys. And our country is all over the place in a lot of different ways, but God has a better way. So I remember, we're talking about sometimes people just need to be heard. There was this gentleman, I was doing a therapeutic group, and man, this was a hospital setting for people that were dealing with crisis stabilization. So they might be dealing with suicidal ideations, homicidal ideations, psychosis, all kinds of very intense presentations that they needed to be hospitalized. This man went off. All of a sudden, he got up in the group that I was doing, and he had a chair, and he started cussing, saying all kind of things, dropping the F-bomb and all this, that, and the other, and he was going to throw a chair through the window. He was going to throw a chair through the window. And I told the mental health tech, she was like, Miss Janice. I said, get everybody out the room. Get them out the room now. Get them out the room now. And I said to this man, I said, let me tell you something. I said, sir, look at me in the eyes. Look at me in the eyes. And he was just like, he was just gone. And I said, sir, look at me in the eyes. Look at me in the eyes. You know, the Bible says that the eyes are the window to the soul. I said, look at me in my eyes. And I said to him, tell me, what do you need right now? He looked at me and you said, listen, there are millions of people that no one has asked them, what do you need right now? I said that to him, and he looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, what I said, sir. And I had a cadence, and I had a calming effect on him. You learn how to do certain things along the way, especially when you've been in behavioral health for 45 years. And I said, what do you need right now? And he said, I need somebody to drop the F-bomb, to effing listen to me. I need somebody to listen to me. And he was like enraged. I took a chair, pulled it up right in front of him, sat it down. I said, I'm here. You need somebody to listen to you? I'm here. And he just looked at me like I had lost my mind. I said, I need you to do something. I need you to put that chair down. You said that you need somebody to listen to you, and I am here, and you have my undivided attention. Let me tell you, that man put that chair down, and I engaged him in a line of questioning, and within less than 2 minutes, he was weeping and crying. I knew I had him in a good spot. Long story short, within 15 to 20 minutes, we had formulated a treatment plan centered around anger management, because see, I knew that anger was not his primary emotion. What was under all of that hardness was a man who was broken, wounded, and traumatized, and no one had really ever asked him what he needed. Long story short, we had the most amazing, life-changing interaction. Why? He told me he needed somebody to listen to him. He needed to be heard. That man became a leader on that unit, that crisis stabilization unit, and he left there with a follow-up aftercare plan. He was totally changed. I've seen those types of scenarios over and over again. Sometimes we just need to be heard. People need to be heard. So he acted like he had lost his mind, but I listened. He just needed to be heard. And if you're dealing with people that are in a major crisis, sometimes they need a therapeutic intervention. You can go to JanicePons.com. I've already laid it out over there. You go to the resource page, you can find a therapist, and the therapeutic process has totally turned people around. Stop being these Christians that tell people that they don't need therapy. That's dangerous, and you're setting yourself up for liability. I've addressed that a couple of times in the last 2 or 3 months, because I've seen some reckless things happen. Support systems are good. Prayer is wonderful. We pray first, but sometimes people need intervention. They need intervention. That man did. He was way out there, but boy, God met him right where he was. But my whole point in sharing this is that man needed to be heard. Oh yeah, he needed to be heard. And I gave him my undivided attention. His life was totally turned around. Sometimes we just need to listen. We know that, and now I'm going to frame some things here, so stick with me. We have the celebration in July of Independence Day. Yet, we're talking about needing to be heard, okay? There are many voices that argue about how they don't want to celebrate Independence Day. Some are saying they refuse to celebrate it and even believe that it should be replaced with something else. This was a conversation that's being held in our nation. It needs to be replaced with Juneteenth. Now, don't turn me off. Right there, I know people will do, there she go with that. Now, stick with me. I'm going somewhere. We're going somewhere, and it's expecting us when we get there. Listen, people, I found out in some interactions that I had that people need to be heard. So, what I just said about replacing the 4th of July Independence Day with Juneteenth, That's truly the mindset of some of our fellow Americans, some of our citizens in our nation. So let's consider a time of celebration in terms of what? What are we celebrating? What are we celebrating in June? What are we celebrating in July? Now, what we're going to do, I want you to engage with me for a moment. Let's examine both sides for purposes of one thing: growth. Growth. Now, what a thought-provoking dynamic that this creates, which ties in with our clinical perspective. Our clinical perspective is acknowledgement. Acknowledgement. Yes, acknowledgement. It's just that simple. Acknowledgement. Now, we're going somewhere. It's expecting us when we get there. Let's go together. The 4th of July, also known as Independence Day, is celebrated to commemorate the adoption of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776, which marked the separation of the 13 American colonies from British rule. Those colonies were New Jersey, Maryland, Virginia, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Delaware, South Carolina, and New Hampshire. It is a day of national pride, often celebrated with fireworks, parades, and various festivities across the United States. The 4th of July, also known as Independence Day, has been a federal holiday, but the tradition of Independence Day celebrations goes back to the 18th century and the American Revolution. Now, stick with me now. I'm gonna challenge us to look at some things. We're gonna grow. I want us to grow. We gotta talk. People need to be heard. And I heard someone out, they heard me out, and I'm gonna share those perspectives with you, and I'm gonna tell you where we went with it. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress voted in favor of independence, and 2 days later, delegates from the 13 colonies adopted the Declaration of Independence, a historic document drafted by Thomas Jefferson. From 1776 to the present day, July 4th has been celebrated as the birth of American independence, with festivities ranging from fireworks, parades, concerts, barbecues, family gatherings, celebration. Now, here's the question. If we were celebrating Independence Day, was everyone independent? Was everyone free? Stop a moment. Think about it. Now, this was that other angle. Someone was coming at me, and I just said, okay, let me hear them out with much respect. And this person was younger than me. We go back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes we just need to hear each other out. Because let me tell you what, I'm partnering with this person, and we're doing some things. Okay, so they said, look, was everyone independent? I said, what do you mean? That's a real question that provokes a lot of thought. Think about it. People can say over and over again that this was the day that our nation gained its independence. Was that the truth for all people in America? Now, we have to lay out some facts and dynamics to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point us in unity towards intervention. That's what I do. This whole podcast is about, from destruction. We've got a lot of destructive stuff going on, to dignity. We want to get there. We can get there. We've had battles to get there, but we've been there as a nation. From destruction to dignity, clinical perspectives, strategy, skills, and tools. That's all. A way of thinking, structured ways of thinking and doing things, considerations. From destruction to dignity, clinical perspective, spiritual truths. I'm going to always include God in it, because what would we be without him? Now, some people who some would consider as radicals want to elevate Juneteenth, elevate it, not to celebrate emancipation, but to displace the 4th of July and fracture the American identity in the name of equity. equity. There's a thrust to promote and elevate Juneteenth's importance in the American consciousness. It just is, whether we like it or not. It always comes up every year. Every year, the 4th of July, it always comes up. The question is this: is this steeped in is it steeped in progressive virtue signaling, where gaslighting the public into believing Juneteenth deserves equal or even greater recognition than the 4th of July? The question is, does it deserve greater recognition? Stick with me. Don't disconnect from me. We're going somewhere. This was a very intense interaction that I had, but boy, we walked away. It was powerful. The truth of the matter is that Juneteenth does not mark the beginning of slavery nor its end. As is the case with so many things in our nation, many believe that activists have hijacked the holiday. Many want to totally dispel Independence Day. Oh yeah. As with so many other things in the nation, Juneteenth has been weaponized in some respects. Stick with me. Now, don't y'all go disconnecting from me. I know how Black Americans think. I'm a Black American. I'm a descendant of slaves. And when I start saying stuff like this, I know how some of y'all think. I've gotten the inboxes. I've been cussed out. I've been mistreated over some dynamics that I happen to bring up. And just say, guys, we just can't do things just because we're Black. We got to understand the whole scope, the whole picture. So let's look at this. Yes, Juneteenth has been weaponized to beat people up, but hold on. There are emotions and there are dynamics around all the feelings and the thoughts related to this. So, as I was interacting with someone that had a totally different angle than me, I thought, what's the goal? Some feel it is to fracture America's identity through deception and denigration. Juneteenth commemorates the day that General Gordon Granger arrived in Texas on June 19, 1865, to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation and declare the end of slavery in the state of Texas. Early celebrations called it Jubilee Day, marking the delayed but welcome fulfillment of the Constitution's promise and the Declaration's revolutionary spirit, at least in Texas. For decades, Juneteenth remained a Texas tradition. It held official status as a state holiday for years and an unofficial one since 1866. But in recent years, radical activists have repurposed it as a tool to, now some people, this is the thrust of some people, guys. It's a lot of stuff that gets mixed in all this stuff in America. Some radical activists have repurposed it as a tool to advance a racialist rewrite of American history. True story. Now, before George Floyd's death in 2020, few progressives were even aware of Juneteenth's existence. They just want people wonder, what is that? What is that? But after Black Lives Matter led riots, which caused over $1.5 billion in property damage and left at least 20 people dead, actually it was about 24 people, the left, the liberal left, seized the cultural moment. Activists bullied lawmakers into submission, both figuratively and literally. Figuratively and literally, that's what happened. It just did. That year, members of Congress knelt in kente cloth as a gesture of obedience. The Pentagon renamed military bases to satisfy a new moral order. Corporations slapped critical theory slogans on products. Products were renamed Aunt Jemima, pancake syrup, God, Uncle Ben's rice, all these things changed all around that thrust. Corporations slapped critical theory slogans on products, changed the names of products, got rid of products. The so-called Black national anthem was played at sporting events, eclipsing the actual national anthem. And I would hear people say, there's one national anthem. There's just, God help us, Jesus. There's just one national anthem. We were hearing it all. Come on, people, come on. Let's go there and talk about this stuff. So you got to put a language to it. And this is what I was doing with this person. Said, look, don't you realize that they did? I said, okay. I had to hear them out. And they had to hear me. Then came the crowning gesture. The creation of a new federal holiday. Juneteenth became what some call the woke sacrament, signaling America's supposedly unending racism. Stick with me here. Juneteenth is Texan, and that's all Texas has every right. You know, they have a right to honor it. It was a Texan thing. The holiday commemorates the fulfillment of America's founding ideals and the abolition of one of humanity's most enduring evils. But beyond Texas, does it hold national significance? Because it was down in Texas that this was still going on. They were still getting 2.5 years of free labor from slaves, and in Texas had not told them that they were free. It was a Texan thing. Now, under the Biden administration, some military installations flew flags calling Juneteenth National Independence Day. That's what happened then. It just was. That was a dynamic that was presented to us in the nation. The Department of Defense distributed official guidance using that exact phrase. Someone named Nicole Hannah Jones, who was the architect of the historically illiterate 1619 project, used Juneteenth to promote her claim that America's true founding began. The true founding of America began with the arrival of African slaves, not the signing of the Declaration of Independence, not the signing of the Declaration. There is nothing wrong with recognition, yet millions simply do not agree nor will participate in dividing, rewriting, and replacing our history. They just won't. They won't. They just like, I ain't gonna have nothing to do with that. You have white Americans, Hispanic Americans, Black Americans. They don't want to have anything to do with it. Millions feel that the broader goal is to erode national unity and advance a Marxist agenda. I'm talking out loud here because this is, I say things that people are thinking, but this is what's going on. I read and research, I observe, I interact. I'm telling you what they told me, and I'm telling you, I don't listen to the news. Don't listen to the news. I cross-document extensively. And this is the dynamic that has been presented. So millions feel like that broader goal is to erode national unity and advance a Marxist agenda, divide Americans by race, replace shared history with grievance, and erase what came before. Just forget about it. That didn't happen. I remember when Jamal Bryant and company was starting the boycotts. I posted a video where I went into Walmart and interacted. I integrated, yeah, that too. I was in there. I was on a mission. God said, go to that Walmart. He directed me. Go to this Walmart, not the other ones, go to this one. I interacted. I ran into a young Black man who was shopping in spite of directives that Jamal Bryant and many quote-unquote black pastors had given the directive to black Americans to not shop on a given day. Well, I didn't agree with what they were saying. And I was like, I'm going to go. And God led me. He said, I want you to go in here. You're going to run into some people, and I want you to pay for their merchandise. Okay? He said, and you go to this Walmart, not to the one you thought you were going to go to. All right? I'm really into being obedient when I get these promptings. So I felt prompted, ran into this young man. How you doing, sir? Oh, hey, ma'am, how are you? Nice, mannerly young man. Bottom line, he had a vision board. He had a journal. He said, I'm going to get back to I said, those are nice things you got there. It was a vision board where he would write his goals on, make journal entries about his emotions, write down goals. It was, my clinical mind was just spinning like, wow, this is good stuff. I just encouraged him. And I asked him if he said, yeah, they telling us we shouldn't shop, but I'm out here. And I said, me too. So we had much in common. So I asked him if he would allow me to video our interaction. If he didn't want me to, I honored that. But I said, just a couple of minutes of just us being Americans and loving each other and supporting each other. He said, absolutely. He said, put it on social media, and I did. And I was putting it on social media for the thousands of followers that I have, and for my Facebook family and friends, to encourage us to be sensitive to help others out. That was my purpose. I wanted us to be encouraged to help something out. Well, the video spread it wide and far. It had a viral effect. And it ended up getting on a page that had hundreds of thousands of followers. And that particular page was coined as a Black business owners page that had my video on it. And so on there, I was labeled as a sellout who was light-skinned, and I just didn't get it as a black person. Look at her. She light-skinned. Look at the color of her lipstick. I mean, they went on and on and on attacking me. And this isn't new to me. You kind of get tough after a while. And it may come with the territory. Because if God can use me to reach one person, I'll go. Oh, yeah. One person said, see, this is why we can't get anything accomplished, because we just won't stick together. They were focused on the color of my skin and my makeup, and this proved my point beyond all reasonable doubt as to why I refuse to participate in what God has told me is a Black collective pathology, which translates into the idolatry of race. I see it all the time, and they just played it right out. I said, there we go. There we go. It's all about skin. And why can't we stick together? And she over there buying something for him. We were two Americans that happened to be descendants of slaves celebrating each other. And God told me to go there. And I was a blessing to him. And I was on a mission. They saw something wrong with it. Oh, yeah. The end of slavery deserves celebration. Many would even support a national holiday that commemorates the abolition of slavery, the 13th Amendment. But what many refuse to participate is we're not going to participate in a Black collective pathology where I'm supposed to do something and we're supposed to do something just because we're Black and descendants of slaves, just because of that. I celebrate. I'm so thrilled of my heritage. But you're going to tell me I can't buy anything. And then the focus becomes on the color of my skin. I've been bullied, pushed in the lockers, all the whole 9 yards, Lord God. It was rough, but I learned to get tough. Had to get tough. And see, it's still going on. And I know people, I love them dearly, but they're still stuck in the 60s. Juneteenth does not represent America's independence. So when people say, we're going to turn the 4th of July, Juneteenth is the 4th of July. That's the day of independence. Juneteenth does not represent America's independence. It doesn't even represent the independence of slaves per se. That was a Texan thing, technically. Too many Americans gave their lives to preserve our constitutional republic, and the revolutionary idea that all men are created equal and endowed by God with unalienable rights. That's what it's about. Independence Day remains the foundation of this nation. Yeah, I have this presidential seal here to pray for the president. We've had 47 presidents, and all of them had a different bent. But I'm going to tell you what, I haven't seen one like I see this 45th and 47th one who is fighting for America. Yeah, the way he is. Independence Day remains the foundation of this nation. It paved the way for emancipation. Was racism in this nation? Absolutely yes. Was it from the pit of hell? Absolutely yes. We had slavery, sharecropping, Jim Crow. I went through it myself. We saw the defeat of fascism, the collapse of communism, and the rise of the most prosperous country in world history. That's what's going on in America. And with our imperfect selves, we still got a long ways to go. The radical left constantly looks for a cultural wedge, though. Always looking for a wedge. And right now, they want to drive it like this, even this Carmela Anthony, this whole Texas thing. You know, Black Lives came out and said, well, if oh gosh, y'all read it. You know, this, if the white boy had done it, they wouldn't be saying, this is all, they want to make it all about race. They want to make it all about race. Said he got indicted, the Carmela Anthony got indicted because he was a young black man. He got indicted because of evidence, a grand jury. They don't indict you unless you got evidence. And he was out of control with his emotions and he acted them out. And senselessly, a fine young man lost his life. Oh yeah, so millions of us refuse to bow at the altar of wokeness and pretend not to notice. And if we object, they call it, we're pro-slavery. Yeah, they call us pro-slavery. We're for slavery. Are you kidding me? I'm a descendant of slaves. We refuse to bow to a movement that seeks to destroy everything good and true about this country. There are good and true things about America. Yes, there are some bad things. There were bad things, atrocious things, and there are good things. There's still bad things, and we come together. And what I found out was hearing each other. But there's a lot that's good and a lot that's right, and the stakes are too high and the truth is too important to surrender. Now, here's another perspective that millions have in our nation. Juneteenth really doesn't excite me at all. Not one bit, not really me personally. I celebrate history, but to be enthralled in it to the point that I will bash people that are not black and demand that Juneteenth replace the 4th of July, that doesn't excite me at all. Not at all. But there are those that are bent on doing that. So what are we celebrating? It provokes me into deep thought. The true history related to this holiday often is not told. Facts are omitted in our nation's history. When I was married and the man that I married to was alive, he literally demanded I come out of the library many times because I spent about 4 years researching and studying original documents about the history of everything related to slavery and this nation. And I just had to understand when I found out that my great-grandmother was born a slave in Virginia. I didn't even find it out till I was in my 20s. And we just didn't talk about things. You need to talk about these things and pass on the history. Every free moment found me engrossed with researching and reading original documents. I didn't want to know someone's opinion. I wanted to consume original documents for myself. I literally had to know, and my life was literally changed. Yes, it was. Political agendas have mastered keeping history that's accurately told from us. I went into these archives and saw things all the way back to the 16, 17, 1800s, saw pictures of hundreds of black men during Reconstruction that were congressmen on Capitol Hill. Hundreds! Why had I not heard about them? Why? Why is that hidden from us? Our entire nation has been fed repeated lies with a focus as a specific target on deceiving black Americans. It's easy to prove. Y'all know it is. Our history books are full of lies. The full truth has been purposefully kept from us. There have been relentless efforts to twist history. Why? Why would they lie? This day was celebrated subsequent to the U.S. Army, which was technically later known as the Grand Army of the Republic, arriving in Galveston, Texas. Major Gordon Granger, he arrived to enforce the end of slavery, the emancipation that happened in 1863. They found out in 1865. At that time, slaves in Texas were advised that the Civil War is over, baby. It's over! And all slaves were set free. But what continued to happen? If we were free, if my great-grandmother was free, and we were free, why did I end up going through Jim Crow? Why did my daddy go through being a sharecropper and had to quit school in the 6th grade? If we were free. Set free from what? The Confederate States of America? Essentially, the slaves in Texas had not been informed that they'd been emancipated in 1863. What's the translation? Slaves in Texas were providing 2.5 extra years of free forced labor, all perpetrated by the Democratic Party. That's just the truth. The Republicans, which were the Union, the military made their way to Texas to inform the slaves of the freedom that had been secured for them in the previous 2.5 years. That's history that's accurately told. Oh yeah, that's history that's accurately told. So, it's so important to know history that's accurately told, because the Confederate States of America was comprised of the Democratic Party. That's just the truth. Let's fast forward to today. The Democratic Party is relentless in their efforts to hide their true history. The brainwashing efforts of their political agenda focuses on getting people to believe that they are the ones who created Juneteenth. No, they didn't. They did not create it. What did they create from a historical perspective? Listen. What they created leading up until now, the history of the Democratic Party is historically been evil, racist, and in actuality, they are the ones who created the Confederate States of America. They attacked the United States of America. They attacked the Union. Over 700,000 Americans died on our own soil. Why? The Confederates died as a result of the relentless efforts to protect what they saw as their state's rights to enslave black people in America. Black people were simply property and provided free labor. It was all about money. It still is about money to keep people controlled. The immigration issue is about money. I've been telling black folk, they've moved on to a whole new voter block. They're done with us. It's all about money, bringing them in illegally. and driving money towards them for what? Control and power. The Republican-led U.S. Army, and they were doing all that while 265,900,000 working Americans were living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet last year. That's why Donald Trump won the election. Kamala Harris was bringing them in, COVID positive, dropping them off, had a flight program, paroling them from prison, guys. That's crazy. And they would come over here and unalive people. My God. The Republican-led U.S. Army, the Union, defeated the Democratic Party, the Confederates, in their policies which led to freeing the slaves. It would be one thing if it ended there, but it didn't. It didn't even end on June 19th, 1865. It said, oh, we're free, y'all free. It didn't end. Approximately 24 civil rights bills have been put in place by many black men, some that were former slaves, such, who are they? Go look them up. Robert Smalls. He was so brilliant with his speech on Capitol Hill. They were saying there's no way that a black man could have wrote a speech like that. That's what they said. They said he didn't do it. He was brilliant. Blanche Bruce. Yeah. Joseph Rainey. Look these people up. John Lynch and Josiah Walls were subsequently a part of Congress and the Republican Party. Why? The Republican Party opened up their arms to former slaves and allowed them to participate in the political process. And the lynching happened because they had to renounce in 1866 when the KKK started. It was a part of instilling fear. They had to renounce their ties to the Republican Party or be flogged or lynched. True story. That's history accurately told. I saw it all. I was shocked. I said, this is not being taught to us. Literally. There were hundreds of black men involved politically after the Civil War, all connected to the Republican Party, guys. I was shocked when I saw pictures of them. Who were these amazing men? Why were we not talking about them in school during American history? Even what was considered black history courses, they weren't there. And I want to know, I was just like, I was telling my husband, he was alive at that time, he was giving, come out of this library, woman. I said, look at these men. Who are they? I was tripped out because I was learning things. I was learning things. Oh, yeah. This is why I wrote Stealing the Minds of Americans on Amazon.com, because my mind had been effectively and strategically stolen, and I took it back. God told me I had to write that book. I did. God, we've been lied to, guys. The Democratic Party was livid when those black men became a part of the Republican Party, and they were taking part of the political process. They were livid, and once they got control of Congress again, oh boy, in 1876, it was a process. They put black people back into slavery for approximately 90 years. Lynching was still occurring in the 70s. I remember it. All a part of what they did. They repealed all of those 24 civil rights bills that those men who were former slaves, they had put it in place. Guys, we're talking about history. We're talking about Independence Day. We're talking about Juneteenth. We're talking about America. This is American history. I went through that vicious, hellish experience of Jim Crow. It was terrifying. The terror was deep, devastating, and demonic. I was scared all the time. The generational trauma, it was relentless. By revelation from God, I know beyond all reasonable doubt that it contributed to the deaths of my daddy and my 4 brothers. This is a little longer than normal, but I'm going to finish this. I heard them verbalize their thoughts, and I saw how they tried to cope. It was difficult. It was deep. Oh yeah, they never acquired the strategy, skills, and tools to be able to process the discrimination and the trauma. Daddy was frequently in an emotional tailspin as a result of mistreatment, abuse, and discrimination. They were terrified, they were ravaged. I'm so grateful for the path that God led me on to heal and to recover. The therapeutic process was a part of it. What did Juneteenth mean during that time? You hear me? See, well, Juneteenth, we were free, right? What did it mean during that time? I really want to know the answer to that question. What did it mean during the 90 additional years perpetrated by the Democratic Party with their political agendas and policies? What does Juneteenth mean now when our taxpayer dollars were paying for all of those illegal immigrants while we were suffering and we were losing houses, our houses? Couldn't even pay for things for our children. What does Juneteenth mean now? By and large, their pattern has been to throw Black Americans a bone. It's easy to prove. Many see this holiday as a bone toss to Black Americans. They do. I'm talking out loud here now. I'm thinking out loud. It's important to remember that not one Democrat voted for the 14th and 15th Amendment, not one. These laws were put in place by Black men, many who were former slaves, who were heavily involved in the Black political activism back then. The Democrats were not responsible for the 1964 and 65 civil rights legislation passing. Johnson, people said, well, President Johnson, he pushed it. He couldn't get enough votes. He couldn't garner enough votes to pass it. And he had been, I read the book, it's something about Senate, Live in the Senate. He was saying back then, oh my God, he was so racist. He was saying, we got to come up with some kind of end bill. There was so much mess going on with him. And so he could not get enough support with the Democrats to pass that legislation, and Republicans were responsible for getting that legislation passed. What did Juneteenth do? What did it stop? What occurred in Tulsa in 1921 during the Tulsa Race Massacre? Did it stop that? Who perpetrated all that? The lynchings occurred in the 70s. Did it stop that? Who was behind all that? What political agenda burned Black business to the ground in 2020? Who was held accountable for the people that lost their lives then? Based upon my understanding of the 24, 25 people that lost their lives, 2 cases involved someone getting indicted. Oh yeah, if we are free, why did Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters say that Republicans and conservatives who supported President Trump during his first term need to be kept away from gas stations, department stores, and restaurants in 2018 based upon who they supported politically? That's Jim Crow all over again, guys. She's a vicious woman who feels that if you aren't a part of the Democratic Party, you deserve discrimination. Everything I've said is true here, guys. Listen. Currently, the Congressional Black Caucus will not even allow a conservative Black politician to be a part of their group. So, what has Juneteenth accomplished? Black Republicans are literally blocked from joining. So how free are we? How did this fit in with the celebration of Black freedom? Make it make sense. Why were we paying for the health care, housing, child daycare, free monthly money card for illegal immigrants up to President Trump stopping it? I was going to visit a quote-unquote Black church. God led me to go on the website to listen to a sermon a couple of weeks prior to when I was going to visit. And the pastor was talking about, he was going on and on, talking about how wrong it is for us to be deporting immigrants. It's all, see, they're trying to talk about, this is what's being pushed. Black and brown people, we got to stick together. To do what? To be against white people, to be against Trump. Come on. We don't want any part of it, guys. All this was occurring. All of this stuff was occurring. President Trump said, stop it. It's about America first. This was occurring while 78% of working Americans were living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet last year. This is confirmed by several financial analysis in our nation. People who need assistance today through welfare, they can't even get it if it's a man in the home. 70% of black babies are born to single moms. LBJ and the Democratic Party set that up through the Great Society in the 60s. For your information, the Democratic Party has moved on to an entirely other voting bloc. They don't give a rip about black Americans. You know how? Their policies. That's why they intentionally brought in these people illegally. It's evident it's a new voting bloc. They're trying to expand and get additional congressional seats to promote their agendas. We didn't get 40 acres and a mule, yet slave owners actually received reparations for losing their property, which were black slaves. They got reparations. They did. I'm not pushing reparations, but I'm just saying, we didn't get the 40 acres and a mule. It was stopped. It was stopped by Democratic President it was stopped by Andrew Johnson. Guys, I'm thinking out loud. I know a precious lady whose family was from Wales. Her family was brought here and was given acres. They said, come on over. We'll give you all these acres. All you got to do is cut down the trees and develop the land. It was their land. That happened in Tennessee. Other groups received land, stipends, housing, free health care, as well as the billions of dollars per year from the U.S. government. Our money. We pay for this now. The compensation of others is definitely warranted, yet has it been equal? And that was the conversation that somebody else gave me, that they needed me to hear them out. So instead of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, I said, let me hear them out. Those who were imported against their will and provided free labor were punished and lynched. We've paid for the benefits of others and their descendants. Make it make sense, please. These are politically driven dynamics. For the record, the parties never switched. Let's address that lie. The only Dixiecrats who came over pretty much who became Republicans, and the party switched. Strom Thurmond, Jesse Helms, and Mills Godwin. The Dixiecrats lasted for 4 months in 1948. Subsequent to that, the Democratic Party pushed on with their demonic agenda from 48 on forward. Look at what they're doing now. Look at what they're doing to our children. Look at how they're indoctrinating the children, taking over women's sports. Guys are lit. The thing goes on and on and on and on. Speaking of, the agendas, listen, a lot of them are just downright demonic. Listen, I'm not choosing to be negative. I'm just telling the bona fide historical truth. They tell us that we're supposed to be rejoicing on the 4th of July. We're supposed to be rejoicing about Juneteenth. I'm not sad. I'm just talking about historical truth. It looks like what's going on in our school system that has strategically put our children in bondage. That is nothing to rejoice about. It's another form of slavery where they go and their minds get accosted, and we're not supposed to say something. It's flat out indoctrination. There have literally been targets put on their backs to sexualize them with specific agendas, and they want us to remain silent about it and be obedient slaves, where Obama put that stuff on steroids with his safe school czar, Kevin Jennings. Go look him up. I've told y'all about looking that man up, and you're gonna learn something. He was the one that put the agenda there. Oh yeah, the curriculum. Yeah, children go to school and get traumatized. So how free are we? This is going a long time. I'm not taking any of it back, though. This is a part of the platform and agenda of what political party? A woman of color who ran for president didn't give a rip about the descendants of slaves. Her family were owners of slaves. She was supposed to focus on those issues at the border. Instead, she was busy bringing them in. She was busy going around to HBCUs, encouraging young black women to dismember, burn, and liquefy their offspring if they conceive. This is a part of a platform and agenda of what party? She wanted us to pay for transgender surgery for illegal immigrants, those that were in prison. Those were her priorities. And she wanted us to use our taxpayer dollars to empower black men to sell weed. At the end of the day, my identity and freedom is not rooted in Juneteenth at all, not one bit. That identity is rooted in deception for me. But what will it benefit me to be joyful and gleeful about something that happened in 1865 and compare it to the agendas that are being perpetrated on us today? I will partner with those with leadership that embolden us from various angles. Financially, I will go with the leadership that promotes our success, not contributes to our dependence on them. The truth of the matter is my freedom is in something that that they are trying to shut down and dismiss. Whom the Son sets free is free indeed. That is my identity. Oh yeah, it's not in my color, in my ethnicity. I'm proud of it. I celebrate it, but it's not steeped in the 4th of July or Juneteenth. We've been lied to in so many ways. Listen, there are a lot of dynamics here. There's just not a one side to this. Now, so what I've laid out is one side. Now, part of all this is acceptance that people have flaws and areas of improvement are needed. If you truly love a person, you know and accept their past, present, and you choose to continue to intentionally understand them and their future. You don't deny, you don't overlook or deflect the past. You have to accept it. So that's acknowledgement. So if we truly love our country and we accept its history, we got to accept it all. And I talk to people that say, well, I didn't have anything to do with that. I didn't do that to black. I didn't do anything. It happened. And what I had to be sensitive to were the people that were coming to me and saying, you're just in denial about what happened to us. I said, no, I'm not. But they needed to be heard. And I had to listen. I was like, okay, God, I got to hear them out. I've seen elected officials who come to this country for better opportunities as immigrants make fun of this national holiday and call it a ghetto. They call it ratchet. They call, even talking about Juneteenth, they'll call it a mockery. It's even been called a monkey holiday. It's called anti-American. It's called straight up DEI. We're talking about the other side. I had to hear it. I had to listen to it. See, it really didn't mean that much to me, but I had to hear where they were coming from. Imagine being a descendant of slaves and then they want to celebrate the holiday that commemorates slaves, what they see slaves as being set free, that it did happen, and looking and being looked down on and talked badly about, and being told something's wrong with you. American descendants of slaves were given this holiday. We didn't collectively ask for it. It doesn't cost Americans any money per se. Some get the day off. It's a holiday now. Okay. Some can choose to work, some don't. It's just, you see all these dynamics in our country? I think there's so much dislike for Juneteenth because it reminds some people that a specific group of people had to wait centuries to be considered free. That was the perspective that was given to me. I had to hear them out. Just like that one man that was cussing me out and going to throw the chair through the window. He said, I need you to hear me out. I need to be heard. I need somebody to listen to me. And so I heard this person out. It's an ugly reality that is much easier to overlook and consider. Listen, guys. We've got to acknowledge what really happened. We've got to acknowledge from slavery over 3,000 years ago, all these things. It wasn't a long time ago that all these things went on for hundreds of years. This went on with my great-grandmother. You know, I'm just trying to frame it for me. If you just think about that, we got to know that it's important to acknowledge American history is very multifaceted and nuanced. There are different groups. We're talking about a group of people who built dozens and dozens of communities, and what happened? They were enslaved, they were uneducated and penniless, and they built businesses. They were upwardly mobile, they were self-sufficient, their marriage rates were high, and the crime rates were low. And you know what happened? Their communities were burned to the ground. Many of the inhabitants were lynched. No justice was served. The perpetrators went home, had family dinners, tucked their children in bed. Countless atrocities could be mentioned that were part of history, but they went on with their lives. Look at what happened at the Tulsa Massacre, 300 people. Go look up the Red Summer of 1919. Look it up. This is what I had to hear. I had to hear where they were coming from. The Red Summer of 1919. That's very odd treatment for black people doing what they're supposed to be doing. They were doing what they were supposed to be doing, but they had people to come in to their communities and do that. Whew. We got a lot going on. We got a lot going on. Listen, I'm telling you what, I love this country. I love my fellow Americans. But part of what we need to be challenged to do is to accept things. Acceptance. Not use it as a weapon against each other. These things can be a teacher. But I'm telling you what, there's a place for acknowledgement. And I'm just going to briefly address acknowledgement. It's where we face our truths, where we have to realize that whether it's through denial, distraction, or busy schedules, we can easily push aside uncomfortable emotions and experiences. However, when we avoid our current reality, we can limit our ability to move forward. What would happen if we engage in breaking the cycle of avoidance and acknowledge what's going on with each other? Avoidance keeps us in old patterns. Yeah, it does. And I had to hear them out. They heard me out. What would happen if we focus on building self-awareness? Acknowledgement is a way of taking stock in our current mindset, our habits, our behaviors, our denial, our mistreatments. What would happen if we focus on creating a space for future healing and growth? That's what I'm all about. That's why I talk about strategy, skills, and tools. It's a way of thinking, acknowledging the present, acknowledging the past, and looking at how we can move forward. Acknowledgement is not about staying in the past. It's about understanding. What would happen if we started navigating discomfort on the path to growth? Listen. I am challenging us as Americans to hear each other out. Hear each other out. What have we talked about? We talked about celebration, Juneteenth, 4th of July, the history of our nation. And we're talking about acknowledgement. Guys, sometimes we just need to hear the other person. And that's what I learned. And so me and this other person that they told me, said, look at what happened. What we supposed to do, just forget all about that? I heard them out. Just like I heard that man out that was cussing and ranting and raving, and he became a leader in that setting that I was in. I heard him out. I heard this person out. And what we're going to do, we're not partnering together to have a positive impact from a mental health perspective in churches and communities, to empower structure. Some people don't know what structure look like. Their mind's so all over the place, they don't know what it looks like. So if I know that, I can bring it to the table in specific settings. Listen, to be able to encourage people towards the therapeutic process, even set up systems where those that can't get it how they may be able to access a support system, providing the support system. Oh yeah, we're going to go there, and it's expecting us when we get there. What have we looked at tonight? We've looked at America. We've looked at our history. Listen, we are going somewhere. It's expecting us when we get there. This has been longer than I had this. I knew it was going to be longer, but these things need to be said because we're talking about celebrating America. We're talking about the 4th of July. We're talking about Juneteenth. We're talking about America, and we are going somewhere. It's expecting us when we get there as we go together. All of this stuff, this history, that was destructive, but we are in a place to take us to an entirely other level of dignity. That's what Janice Pons is about. That's what this podcast about. Keep coming back. Thank you so much for joining in. I give a shout out again to Singapore, Finland, Australia, Africa, Egypt, the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America, as we go together, yes, us, from destruction to dignity, clinical perspectives, spiritual truths. I'll see you next week. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are one power, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation.